Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pollux the Wise. I hope you guys are doing absolutely frogging splendid, taking care of yourselves, and as always, staying safe. Reinforcements are arguably one of the most versatile emergency spells in the Kingdom Rush franchise, primarily because of how often you get to use them. But finding the most efficient use for these reinforcements in the heat of battle is easier said than done. So, in today's video, we'll be taking a look at the optimal reinforcement placement on the battlefield, along with a few helpful tricks to get the most out of this powerful pair of allies at your disposal. So without further ado, let's get started. To begin with, your reinforcements have a cooldown, much like most other special spells in your arsenal. In the first 3 editions of the franchise, the lifetime on your reinforcements is 20 seconds. Kingdom Rush Vengeance, however, nerfs this by making the lifetime of all units up to and including Demon Guards to be 12 seconds instead of the traditional 20. Hylian Tridents and the Pit Lord are only slightly better at 16 seconds. As for the cooldown on the reinforcements, the first 2 editions of the franchise are set to a 10-second cooldown. Kingdom Rush Origins starts off with reinforcements cooldown at 15 seconds, but allows the player to lower the cooldown to the traditional 10 seconds by maxing the reinforcements in the star upgrade tree to level 4. Once again, in Kingdom Rush Vengeance, the cooldown is nerfed to 14 seconds universally across the board. There are no soul upgrades that reduce the cooldown to the original 10 seconds. Now that we've covered the cooldown and lifetime durations, let's talk a little bit about how reinforcements actually work. To begin with, most reinforcements in the first 2 editions of the game are strictly for melee combat. They only unlock a ranged attack when you upgrade them to level 5 in the star upgrade tree. In Kingdom Rush Origins, however, reinforcements unlock a ranged attack as early as level 2 in the star upgrade tree. Kingdom Rush Vengeance offers a split path in the 3rd column of the Souls upgrade tree, where taking the rightmost path allows you to unlock Hylian and Flaming Tridents at levels 3 and 4. It is common knowledge that reinforcements which possess a ranged attack are objectively better than those that do not, but not everyone knows how to take advantage of these ranged attacks or how to make their reinforcements last longer in melee combat. To begin with, we're going to cover a few examples of what not to do with your reinforcements before moving on to the things that you should do. One of the most basic rookie mistakes is to max out your reinforcements in the upgrade tech tree so that they have ranged attacks, only to spam them in melee combat when you need them most. Although the ranged attacks are slower than the melee attacks by a slim duration, they are much more powerful. So it doesn't make sense to bother upgrading the reinforcements to include ranged attacks if you're not even going to bother placing them at range. The only exception to this rule would be if an enemy was literally about to leak near an exit, and your hero or barracks are both unavailable for stalling. Another common mistake I see other gamers make in their gameplay is target prioritization. Reinforcements aren't just good for basic stalling and chip damage, they're insanely important as a means of breaking up enemy wave compositions that synergize incredibly well with each other. On their own, most enemies in Kingdom Rush are either strong against magic towers or strong against physical damage, and without support from nearby enemy units, they're usually not that much of an issue. But certain enemies synergize so well with each other that they're capable of making or breaking your defense if you're not careful. Let's take a look at an example. Suppose you're faced with the following scenario. You've got an ogre, followed by a couple shamans, and some supporting goblins behind all of that. The question is, who do you stall with your reinforcements? Did you guys guess the ogre? Well, that's the wrong answer. The ogre simply deals too much damage at this point in the game for your reinforcements to be able to stall it for any great length of time. So, Pollux, you might ask, why wouldn't I want to stall the ogre? Well, my dear tadpoles, the answer is simple. The shamans and goblins don't deal nearly as much damage as an ogre does. On top of all that, if the shamans and goblins manage to make their way in front of the rather slow-moving ogre like they are right now, they'll distract your other towers from firing their projectiles at the ogre itself, allowing the ogre to travel through most of the path relatively unscathed. And that's precisely what you want. You don't want enemies to tank for the ogre. Rather, you want the ogre tanking for everyone else so you can burst it down before the other enemies can rush out in front of it to distract your defenses. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but the shamans provide a good amount of healing to nearby allies. So, keeping them separated from the ogre as long as possible makes it a lot easier to burst down him if he's not constantly getting healed by the shamans. Let's take a look at another example. Consider this following example. You've got blood ogres charging down one path, and a bunch of null reavers and burners charging down another path. The question is, yet again, who do we stall? Did you guess the null reavers and burners this time around? Well, you are wrong. In this instance, considering the fact that Blood Ogres typically spawn in smaller groups, and since they don't deal that much damage in melee combat in comparison to the Ogres from the original edition of Kingdom Rush, it makes more sense for our reinforcements to take on the Blood Ogres, considering that they're much beefier than before, and keep them apart from the supporting Null Reavers and Burners, especially since there are less Blood Ogres than there are supporting Null troops. Had we not stalled them at all and simply allowed the two groups of enemies to join up, like we are right now, the Blood Ogres would promptly transform all of those weak Reavers and Burners into Blood Gnolls, which are substantially stronger than their former selves. So by keeping certain enemy units at bay with our reinforcements, we can make enemy waves that would normally be very difficult, such as this one, a lot easier. Finally, let's talk about some examples of what you should do with your reinforcements. One of the best tricks you can utilize to make your reinforcements last a little bit longer is by doing something called staggering their placement in relation to where the enemy is. By doing this, instead of simply planting reinforcements on top of an enemy like so, the enemy will pause for a few moments, buying valuable time for your defenses to get some extra damage in, while the reinforcements charge from a short distance away. Let's try this out ourselves now. Notice how this Dune Raider is charging his way down the left side of the path and is making his way around the bend. I'm going to wait until he gets in range of this Archmage tower, and then we're going to stagger our reinforcements behind him so that he pauses while they charge into battle. Notice how the Archmage had time to get off some extra shots at him because he was paused, waiting for the reinforcements to engage him in melee combat. Another good example we kind of mentioned earlier was the utilization of ranged attacks from your reinforcements. One of the best ways to ensure this happens 100% of the time is by simply placing reinforcements off to the side of the path, typically where there is a fork in the road. The range of your reinforcements' ranged attacks is usually pretty generous, so don't feel like you have to place them too close to an enemy in order to make sure that they get hit. If you still want your reinforcements to use their ranged attacks, and you don't want to place them off to the side on another path, using your hero or a low-level barracks is an excellent alternative, coupled with heroes who can buff barrack units such as Deirdre or Gerald Lightseeker. That's about going to do it for the end of today's video, ladies and gentlemen. So if you guys enjoyed, let me know down in the comments section below, and I will hopefully see you guys all in the next YouTube video or live stream. This is Pollux the Wise. Peace out.